Sure.
Welcome to this evening's open forum. Today we have the pleasure to present Chika Okeke Agulu. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. My first trip to Norway and to Oslo, of course, and to this wonderful institution, the National Academy. I want to share with you some ideas about a project that I did recently. I teach at Princeton University, an art historian who started out as an artist and have since dabbled into curating and organizing exhibitions of contemporary art. And this project took place in Berlin between June and October of last year and was called Who Knows Tomorrow. I will read, part of my presentation so that you get a good grasp on the ideas behind the project. I think one of the interesting things about talking about a project like this after the fact is that it helps us as artists, as budding curators and so forth, in terms of our understanding of how these so-called big exhibitions happen. The lives that they live before and after. So Who Knows Tomorrow was an exhibition of independent projects by 5 African artists, which opened at the National Gallery, Berlin in June 2010. Conceived in response to an invitation by the office of the then federal president, Horst Köhler, to present an African art exhibition in Berlin to coincide with the conference of the President's Africa Forum initiative. The project explored the difficult and complex colonial and post-colonial relationship between Africa and Europe. The curators, that is Britta Schmitz and myself, and then later we were joined by the present director of the National Gallery itself, Udo Kittelman. We imagined an art exhibition that was not so much about Africa and African art, as a platform for African artists to contemplate the place of Berlin in the history of European colonization of the African continent, a process that officially began with the Congo-Berlin Conference of 1884-85, convened by Germany's first imperial chancellor, Otto von Bismarck. While Bismarck's conference was meant to resolve the scramble for Africa by rival European nations, attracted by the continent's vast wealth of raw materials and mineral resources, it provided him a unique opportunity to secure a significant role for the newly unified German nation in European imperial politics. The personal involvement of the, at the time, current German president, that is in 2006, and the location of the show in key German art museums, each with a history steeped in the politics of German national identity, provided a unique opportunity to re-examine the long-established and often ignored or under-acknowledged relationships between art and state power, between aesthetics and nationalism, and between the artistic avant-garde and political ideology. Moreover, Berlin presents a curious case of conscious amnesia. That is to say, it makes evident an apparent tendency in the German historical imagination and national memory to forget both the city's past as a colonial metropolis and the nation's history as a colonial power. As the art historian Joachim Zeller has noted, accounts of the German past often dismiss as marginal the nation's relatively brief yet crucial experience as a colonial power, despite the fact that, as in other European states, the fever of colonial acquisition was widespread among the political elites and the working class. For territorial holdings had become a mark of national power and influence in late 19th century Europe. Thus, Bismarck, a vocal skeptic of colonialism's political and economic value in the German national imaginary, but pressed by newly formed private and public colonial associations in Germany, was forced to send emissaries to negotiate quick territorial possessions in parts of Africa, South Pacific, and China, just months before the Berlin-Congo Conference. Despite the fact that the late 19th and early 20th century Berlin was enthralled by the economic and political possibilities of the overseas colonial enterprise, the memory of that experience exists today only in the city's museum collections, especially in the Ethnological Museum in Dahlem and the Pergamon Museum, but also in libraries and archives. Remarkably, in Berlin, there are virtually no public monuments to the colonial age. It is as if that episode, so crucial to the city and the nation's modern history, never happened. That is an important question that the project, Who Knows Tomorrow, wished to confront. The exhibition, in other words, sought to revisit the debate about the deep, uneasy, yet ignored connections among colonialism, modernity, and modernism, and to reimagine the post-colonial experience, which is as much a problem for Europe as it is for Africa, through the critical perspective of contemporary art. The concept and title of the project reflect its direct engagement with history and the politics of Euro-African encounters inaugurated by the agreements signed at the Berlin-Congo Conference. In revisiting that history by imposing their artistic imagination on key cultural symbols of imperial and post-imperial Germany, the artists, we hope, encouraged critical awareness of the vicissitudes and unpredictability of human action and its consequences. To imagine the radical changes wrought by time and circumstances since the conference, for instance, the fact that the artists whose ancestors were excluded from a process that irrevocably and profoundly shaped their future, can now authoritatively comment on that event, is to appreciate the capricious drama of human experience. These considerations inform the adoption of a popular saying widespread in Africa as the title and conceptual framework of the Berlin project. So, Who Knows Tomorrow, the title, as we used it, is a simultaneous rhetorical question, because in Africa, it's a question, who knows tomorrow? But in the project, we took out the question mark. So it's, a statement, but also by the time you state it, it sounds like a question. It's an emphatic statement that speaks to the experience of social time. In suggesting the sublime inscrutability of tomorrow, that which has yet to happen, it invariably implies a critical reflection on the past and the present as precondition for a meaningful preparation for the vagaries of the inevitable future. In popular discourse, Who Knows Tomorrow has a similar semantic value as another popular saying that you see in written on trucks that ply major African cities. In fact, the cover of the catalog that we produced has this picture of this lorry, that has no condition is permanent written on it. And another one has, who knows tomorrow, also written on it. So this idea of no condition is permanent is similar to who knows tomorrow in the sense that both reflect a social ethic that cautions against total disregard of another person's claim to her own subjectivity, desire, and place in the world. Thus, while we ponder the fate of nationalism in post-colonial Germany, Europe, and Africa, it is important to reflect on the politics of national identity and loyalty in late 19th century and early 20th century Imperial Germany and Europe,